Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the fleeting moments before dusk, the bedroom transformed into a canvas of golden hues. Shadows danced across the floor as the sun, a retiring artist, cast its final rays through the half-drawn curtains. Amidst this ethereal light, a solitary figure stood, silent and still as a statue. Velvet, a deep, rich burgundy, draped like liquid magic over the form of a maxi dress. Its wearer held their breath, admiring the way the soft fabric skimmed and flattered, sculpting a body hidden beneath. Padded curves, careful illusions, and soft lines crafted a masterpiece of deception, a gender-defying phoenix rising. A trembling touch caressed the waist, trailing down the side, as if testing the reality of this new shape. For months, these moments had been stolen, hurried sessions with borrowed clothes that never quite fit right, always accompanied by the fear of discovery. But this dress was different. This dress was his, purchased after weeks of saving, hiding the package delivery, and anxiously tracking its journey to his doorstep. The burgundy velvet caught the light as he turned, the fabric swirling around black stiletto heels that added inches to his height. The dress had been an extravagance, but necessary. It represented something permanent, a commitment to the truth he'd kept hidden for so long. A twirl. The dress flared out, then settled against his legs. Another twirl, faster this time, accompanied by a smile that felt foreign on his lips. Uninhibited, genuine joy. The sound of a key in the front door lock shattered the moment. Keegan froze mid-spin, the smile vanishing. His father wasn't due home from his business trip until tomorrow evening. There had to be some mistake. Heavy footsteps in the hallway, a suitcase being set down, the rustle of a coat being removed. "Keegan, you home? Flight got canceled due to weather, so I caught an earlier one." The bedroom door stood ajar. A careless oversight born from the excitement of finally being alone with the package that had arrived that morning. Keegan lunged for it, but in the unfamiliar heels, his movement was clumsy and too slow. The door swung open. Time crystallized into a perfect, terrible moment. His father stood in the doorway, briefcase still in hand, mouth open in mid-sentence. The words died as his eyes took in the scene. His son in a burgundy velvet dress, wearing makeup and heels, standing before a mirror. "Dad?" Keegan whispered, the word barely audible. "I can explain." The briefcase hit the floor with a dull thud. His father's face cycled through expressions too quickly to name. Shock, confusion, disbelief. "What is this?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy and unavoidable. Keegan's hands clutched at the velvet fabric, as if the dress itself might provide some protection against the moment. Words failed. How to explain something he barely understood himself? The lifetime of feeling wrong in his own skin. The secret relief when alone with borrowed clothes. The growing certainty that the person in the mirror now was more authentic than the person he pretended to be every day. His father stepped into the room, movements careful, as though approaching a wild animal. "Keegan, talk to me!" "I didn't think you'd be home." A useless statement, but it was all he could manage. "Clearly." His father's voice was flat, unreadable. He sank down onto the edge of the bed, eyes never leaving Keegan's face. "How long has this been going on?" The question was so unexpected that Keegan almost laughed. How long? Forever, in some ways, since the first awareness that something was different about him, about how he experienced the world. But that wasn't what his father was asking. "I've been trying on Mom's clothes for a few months." The admission felt like jumping off a cliff. "But this dress is mine. I bought it. It came today." His father rubbed his hands over his face, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. The silence stretched between them, taut and dangerous. "Dad, please say something." "What am I supposed to say?" The words weren't angry, just lost. "I don't understand this, Keegan. I don't know what this means." Keegan took a deep breath. The moment of discovery had always been his greatest fear, but now that it was here, a strange calm settled over him. No more hiding, no more pretending. "It means I've never felt right as a boy, as a man." The words came easier now, spilling out after being contained for so long. "When I dress like this, when I see myself like this, I feel like me for the first time, like I'm seeing the real me." "And who is the real you?" His father's voice was quiet. Keegan met his father's eyes directly for the first time since he'd entered the room.
"Her name is Stella."
The name hung in the air between them, delicate and powerful. It was the first time Keegan had spoken it aloud to anyone, this name he'd chosen for his true self. His father stood abruptly, pacing the small confines of the bedroom. Keegan, Stella, watched, heart pounding against her ribs. She'd imagined this moment countless times, but never with her father finding her like this. In her scenarios, she was prepared, articulate, ready to defend her truth.
"I need coffee for this conversation,"
her father finally said.
"Strong coffee. And you should get comfortable. This might take a while."
Stella glanced down at the burgundy dress, suddenly self-conscious.
"No,"
her father said, correctly interpreting her hesitation.
"Don't change. If we're going to talk about this, I want to talk to Stella, the real you."
Those words, the real you, sent a tremor through her. Not acceptance, not yet, but acknowledgement. It was more than she'd dared hope for in these first terrible moments. Her father disappeared down the hallway. Stella heard him in the kitchen, the familiar sounds of the coffee maker being prepared. She tried to calm her racing heart, smoothed the velvet dress with trembling hands, and considered what came next. There was no going back now. Whatever happened from this moment forward, her secret was out. Carefully, she made her way out of the bedroom, the unfamiliar heels clicking against the hardwood floor. The kitchen was warm and familiar, at odds with the life-changing conversation about to happen within its walls. Her father stood at the counter, shoulders tense as he waited for the coffee to brew. He turned when he heard her enter, his eyes moving over the dress, the makeup, the carefully styled brown hair.
"You look like your mother in that light," he said quietly. "Something about the way you hold yourself."
Tears sprang to Stella's eyes, unbidden. "Really?"
"Really."
He pulled 2 mugs from the cabinet, the domestic normalcy of the gesture at odds with the situation.
"Sit down, please."
Stella sat at the kitchen table, arranging the voluminous velvet carefully around the chair. Her father brought over 2 steaming mugs, setting one before her.
"I don't know the right questions to ask,"
he admitted, sitting across from her.
"I don't know the right words."
"I don't have all the answers," Stella replied. I'm still figuring it out myself. Does anyone else know? She shook her head. No, you're the first person I've ever been myself with. Her father stared into his coffee as if it might contain wisdom. I always knew you were different, more sensitive than other boys, less interested in the things they seemed to care about. But I never thought... He trailed off, then looked up. Have I made it worse? By pushing you into sports, into boy things? Stella considered this. No, you were trying to help me fit in. I wanted to fit in too. I just couldn't. When did you know? She wrapped her hands around the warm mug, thinking. I don't know if there was one moment. It was more like a collection of moments. Feeling uncomfortable when people called me handsome, but lighting up inside when someone mistakenly called me her or she. Feeling like I was watching my life from outside myself. And then, when I first tried on clothes that matched how I felt inside, she gestured at the burgundy dress. It was like putting on glasses when you didn't know you needed them. Suddenly, everything was clear. Her father nodded slowly, absorbing this. And Stella? Where did that name come from? A small smile touched her lips. Remember that astronomy phase I went through when I was 12? Stella means star. I liked that. The idea of finding light in darkness.
It's a beautiful name,
her father said softly. Then he was quiet for a long time, staring into his coffee. When he spoke again, his voice was rough with emotion.
I want you to be happy. I've only ever wanted that. But I'm scared for you, Key. Stella, the world can be cruel. I know,
she whispered.
I'm scared too. That's why I've kept it secret. What happens now? Is this... He gestured at her dress, her whole appearance. Something you want all the time? Or is it just sometimes?
Stella had asked herself the same question countless times. I think all the time. I think I'm a woman, Dad. Not a man who likes to dress in women's clothes sometimes. A woman who's been forced to live as a man. Her father's eyes filled with tears. It was shocking to see. He rarely cried.
This won't be easy.
I know. Your mother... Do you think she'll hate me? The question burst out, revealing Stella's deepest fear.
No,
her father said firmly.
Never. She'll be surprised, like I am. But hate you? Never.
Relief flooded through her. One parent's tentative acceptance was more than she dared hope for tonight. And you? Do you hate me?
Stella.
Her name in her father's voice, spoken with such care, broke something open inside her.
You're my child.
I love you. Always have. Always will. I don't understand everything about this yet, but I want to learn. I want to help. The tears she'd been holding back spilled over, tracking through her carefully applied mascara. I was so afraid you'd throw me out.
Never.
Her father reached across the table, taking her hand in his.
This is your home. You are my child. Nothing changes that.
They talked until dawn, the coffee growing cold and being refreshed multiple times. Stella tried to explain things she barely understood herself. The dysphoria, the secret shopping trips, the online research done in private browsing modes. Her father asked questions, some insightful, some awkward, all honest. They cried together, laughed occasionally, and slowly built a bridge across the chasm of understanding that had opened between them. As the first light of morning touched the kitchen windows, her father finally stood, stretching his stiff back.
We should try to get some sleep. Your mother will be home tomorrow, and we should both be rested for that conversation.
Stella nodded, suddenly exhausted. The emotional toll of the night had drained her completely. She stood as well, the burgundy dress wrinkled from hours of sitting. Dad, thank you for listening, for trying to understand. Her father pulled her into a hug, surprising her with its fierceness.
Thank you for trusting me with your truth, even if it was accidental.
They both laughed at that, a moment of lightness after the heavy night.
Good night, Stella,
her father said as they parted in the hallway.
Good morning, actually,
she corrected with a small smile.
So it is.
He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded.
A new day.
Stella returned to her bedroom, carefully removing the burgundy dress and hanging it in the back of her closet, not hidden anymore, but protected. As she washed away the remnants of makeup and slipped into pajamas, she caught her reflection in the mirror. The face looking back was the same one she'd always known, but somehow different now. Unburdened, perhaps, by the weight of secrecy. She fell into bed as the sun rose fully, exhausted but lighter than she'd felt in years. Whatever came next, her mother's reaction, decisions about how and when to tell others, the complicated journey ahead, she wouldn't face it alone. For now, that was enough. When Stella woke, afternoon sunlight streamed through her window. For a moment, disorientation gripped her. Why had she slept so late? Then the memories of the previous night came flooding back. Her father discovering her in the burgundy dress, the hours-long conversation, the unexpected acceptance. A knock at her bedroom door startled her, fully awake.
Keegan?
Her father's voice, hesitant.
Sorry, Stella. Are you awake?
Yes, she called, voice rough with sleep.
Come in.
Her father entered, carrying a mug of coffee and a plate with toast. His eyes were shadowed with fatigue, but he smiled as he set the late breakfast on her nightstand.
I thought you might be hungry. We didn't exactly eat during our talk last night.
Stella sat up, suddenly aware of her rumpled appearance. No makeup, hair a mess, wearing old flannel pajamas that had never felt more wrong than they did in this moment. Thanks, she said, taking the coffee gratefully. What time is it? Almost 3. We both slept most of the day. He sat on the edge of her bed. Your mother called. Her flight lands at 7. She'll be home around 8:30. Stella's stomach tightened with anxiety. Are we going to tell her tonight?
That's up to you.
Her father ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she recognized from her own nervous habits.
I won't say anything if you're not ready, but I also won't lie if she asks me directly what's going on. And to be honest, she'll know something's up. We've been married too long for me to hide something this big. Stella nodded, sipping her coffee. I should tell her. It's not fair to make you keep this secret. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. He hesitated, then added, I've been doing some reading this morning, online, about transgender experiences. I have a lot to learn. The word hung in the air between them. Transgender. They hadn't used it explicitly in their night-long conversation, dancing around labels in favor of feelings and experiences, but there it was now, concrete and real. "Thank you," Stella said, touched by his effort. "I'm still learning too."
"I made an appointment,"
her father said suddenly.
"with Dr. Reynolds. She's a therapist who specializes in gender identity issues. Just a consultation for next week. I thought it might help to talk to a professional, both of us. Together or separately, whatever you're comfortable with."
Tears sprang to Stella's eyes at this unexpected gesture of support. "You did that for me?"
"Of course."
He looked surprised that she would question it. "You're my child."
"If you're going through something this significant, I want to make sure you have the right support. The reading I did this morning made it clear that professional guidance is important."
Stella set down her coffee and hugged her father tightly. "Thank you."
"Now,"
he said, patting her back awkwardly before pulling away.
"What's the plan for tonight? How do you want to approach this with your mother?"
Stella considered this, anxiety mixing with determination. "I think I want her to meet Stella. Really meet her, not just hear about her." Her father raised an eyebrow.
"The burgundy dress?"
"Maybe something a bit more casual," Stella said with a small smile. "But yes, I want to be myself when we talk to her."
"All right."
He stood, giving her shoulder a supportive squeeze. "Take your time getting ready. I'll handle dinner preparations." After he left, Stella sat for a long time, finishing her coffee and gathering her courage. Then she moved to her closet, opening the door to reveal the small collection of women's clothing she'd managed to accumulate, mostly hidden at the back or in boxes labeled with mundane contents. The burgundy dress was too formal for a family dinner, but there were other options. She selected a soft, cream-colored sweater and a knee-length brown skirt, items she'd purchased online over the past few months. The outfit was simple, feminine without being overstated. Next came the careful application of makeup, not too heavy, just enough to enhance her features and help her face match how she felt inside. The brown hair she styled with care, coaxing it into a softer, more feminine arrangement, despite its relatively short length. Looking in the mirror, Stella saw herself, truly herself, staring back. The person she'd kept hidden for so long was finally stepping into the light. By the time her mother's key turned in the front door, Stella was seated at the kitchen table, hands clasped tightly in her lap to hide their trembling. Her father stood nearby, offering a reassuring presence.
"I'm home,"
her mother's cheerful voice called from the entryway.
"The conference was exhausting, but I think it went well. Did you two survive without me?"
Footsteps approached the kitchen. Stella held her breath. Her mother appeared in the doorway, still removing her coat. She froze mid-motion as her eyes fell on Stella, sitting at the familiar kitchen table in unfamiliar clothes. "Hello, Mom," Stella said softly. Her mother's eyes moved from Stella to her husband, questions written all over her face. "What's going on?"
"Why don't you sit down?"
Stella's father suggested gently.
"We have something important to talk about."
"Clearly," her mother said, her voice carefully neutral as she took a seat across from Stella. Her eyes never left her child's face. Stella had rehearsed what she wanted to say a dozen times that afternoon, but now that the moment was here, all her carefully prepared words evaporated. Instead, she simply said, "Mom, I'm transgender. I'm a woman. My name is Stella." Her mother's face went through a series of micro-expressions: surprise, confusion, concern. She reached across the table,
taking Stella's hand. "How long have you known?" Not the question Stella had expected. Not, "Are you sure?" or "Why are you doing this?" or any of the dozen defensive reactions she'd prepared for. "I've felt different my whole life," Stella answered honestly. "But I've only had the words for it, understood what it meant, for the past year or so." Her mother nodded slowly, absorbing this. "And you?" she asked, looking at her husband. "When did you find out?"
"Last night,"
he admitted.
"I came home early and, well, discovered Stella in a rather beautiful burgundy dress."
A small, surprised laugh escaped her mother. "The package that arrived yesterday? I saw it on the porch camera and wondered." Stella nodded. "I've been experimenting privately for a while, trying to understand myself." Her mother was quiet for a long moment, looking at Stella with an expression that was hard to read. Finally, she said, "This explains a lot, actually. You've always been not quite comfortable in your own skin. I noticed, but I didn't know how to help." "You're not upset?" Stella asked, hardly daring to hope. "I'm processing," her mother admitted. "It's a surprise, certainly, and I have concerns about your safety, about how others will treat you, about the challenges ahead. But upset that you're being honest about who you are? No." Tears welled in Stella's eyes, spilling over despite her efforts to contain them. Her mother immediately moved around the table, pulling her into an embrace. "You've always been my beautiful child," she whispered fiercely. "That hasn't changed. Won't ever change." They held each other for a long moment, years of unspoken understanding flowing between them. When they finally separated, Stella's father had discreetly wiped his own eyes. "Well," her mother said briskly, settling back into her chair, "I suppose we have a lot to discuss. And I want to see this burgundy dress that started it all." Stella laughed, relief making her light-headed. "It's quite spectacular." "I'm sure it is." Her mother smiled, though there was still worry in her eyes.
"Stella, it suits you."
The evening unfolded in a series of conversations, questions, and revelations. Stella found herself explaining things she'd never articulated aloud before. How clothing wasn't just fabric, but affirmation. How hearing her new name spoken felt like recognition of her true self. How the fear of rejection had kept her silent for so long. Her parents listened, asked questions, sometimes struggled with terminology, but never with acceptance. Her father shared what he'd learned from his morning research, including the therapist appointment he'd made. Her mother suggested they look into support groups, for Stella and for themselves as parents. "This is a journey for all of us," she said. "We'll navigate it together." Later, after her mother had admired the burgundy dress and they'd shared a late dinner, Stella found herself alone in her room, emotionally drained, but profoundly grateful. The day had unfolded in ways she could never have predicted when she'd nervously opened that package yesterday. A soft knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called. Her mother entered, carrying a small box. "I have something for you," she said, sitting beside Stella on the bed. "I was saving it for your birthday, but it seems more appropriate now." She handed over the box. Stella opened it curiously to find a delicate gold necklace with a small star pendant. "It reminded me of your childhood obsession with astronomy," her mother explained. "But now, knowing your name, it seems like it was meant for Stella all along." Tears threatened again as Stella lifted the necklace. It's beautiful.
May I?
Her mother asked, taking the necklace and moving behind Stella to fasten it around her neck.
There. Perfect.
Stella touched the star pendant where it rested against her skin.
Thank you for this and for everything today. I love you.
Her mother's voice was fierce with conviction.
The road ahead won't be easy. There will be people who don't understand, who might be cruel. But you will always, always have a safe place with us.
They embraced again, and Stella felt the weight of secrecy falling away completely. There would be challenges ahead, telling friends, extended family, navigating the complex medical and social aspects of transition. But in this moment, surrounded by unexpected acceptance, those challenges seemed manageable. That night, as she prepared for bed, Stella looked at herself in the mirror one last time. The person looking back was the same one who had nervously unwrapped a burgundy velvet dress just yesterday, and yet fundamentally changed, no longer hidden, no longer afraid. Stella touched the star pendant at her throat and smiled at her reflection. Tomorrow would bring new conversations, new decisions. But for tonight, being recognized for who she truly was, by her parents and by herself, was enough. 6 months later, Stella stood before the same mirror, marveling at the changes both subtle and profound. Her brown hair had grown out, now falling past her shoulders in soft waves. The hormone therapy she'd started 3 months ago had begun to soften her features and redistribute her body's curves in ways that brought her reflection closer to the image she'd always held in her mind. She smoothed down the burgundy velvet dress, the same one that had been discovered that fateful night, now altered slightly to better fit her changing figure. The occasion warranted its return. Tonight was her first formal outing as Stella, to an event where she would see extended family and old friends, many of whom she hadn't spoken to since beginning her transition.
You look beautiful, her mother said from the doorway.
Stella turned, smiling.
I'm nervous.
I know, but we'll be right there with you. Her mother stepped into the room, adjusting the star necklace that had become Stella's everyday accessory. Your Aunt Mary called again. She's so excited to meet you properly. The support from extended family had been unexpectedly positive for the most part. There had been confusion, certainly, and a few uncomfortable questions, but the outright rejection Stella had feared had largely failed to materialize. Is Dad ready? Stella asked, checking her makeup one last time.
Waiting by the car and checking his watch every 30 seconds, so yes, very ready.
They both laughed, familiar with his punctual nature. The dinner was at a restaurant downtown, a celebration of her grandparents' anniversary. It would be the first time many relatives saw Stella as herself, though most had been informed ahead of time through careful conversations had by her parents.
I never thought I'd be doing this, Stella admitted as they headed for the door.
6 months ago, I was sure I'd have to choose between being myself and keeping my family. Her mother squeezed her hand. We're the lucky ones, to have you trust us with your truth. The restaurant was warm and inviting, a private room reserved for the family gathering. Stella felt eyes on her as she entered, but the looks were curious, not hostile. Her grandfather was the first to approach, moving with the aid of his cane.
So,
he said, looking her up and down with an inscrutable expression.
This is Stella.
She nodded, heart hammering in her chest. Her grandfather had been the one she'd worried about most, a man of traditional values and strong opinions.
The name suits you,
he said finally, his weathered face breaking into a small smile.
Your grandmother wants to talk fashion with you. Something about that dress being exactly the shade she's been looking for.
Relief flooded through Stella as her grandfather patted her awkwardly on the shoulder before moving away. The rest of the evening unfolded in a series of reunions, some awkward, most warm, all part of the new reality she was building. Her cousin Thomas, always her closest friend in the family, pulled her aside during dessert.
You seem happy,
he observed.
Happier than I've ever seen you.
I am, Stella confirmed, touching the star pendant at her throat. For the first time, I feel like I'm not pretending.
Then that's all that matters.
He clinked his glass against hers.
To no more pretending.
As the evening wound down, Stella found herself standing with her parents, watching the family interactions with a sense of wonder. Thank you, she said softly, for everything, for making this possible. Her father put his arm around her shoulders. We didn't do anything special, just loved our daughter. The words still brought tears to her eyes. Daughter, her, Stella, the simple recognition of who she had always been. Outside the restaurant, as they walked to the car under a canopy of stars, her mother looked up at the night sky. Your namesakes are out in force tonight. Stella followed her gaze, taking in the brilliant points of light above. They've always been there, she said, just sometimes hidden behind clouds. Her father unlocked the car, but paused before getting in.
You know what I realized tonight? Watching you with everyone.
What? Stella asked.
That burgundy dress really was worth every penny.
He grinned, breaking the moment of seriousness. Stella laughed, the sound carrying into the night air. It really was. As they drove home, Stella watched the city lights blur past the window, reflecting on the journey that had begun 6 months ago with an unexpected homecoming and a velvet dress. There were still challenges ahead. There always would be. But for the first time, she was facing them as her true self, surrounded by love that had proven stronger than fear or convention. The star pendant caught the passing streetlights, glinting against the deep burgundy of her dress. A reminder of who she had always been, now finally visible to the world. Stella, her light no longer hidden, but shining for all to see.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!